So, yeah, well, not much has happened yet on the head coach front, although it does look very likely that that former Bristol City boss Lee Johnson will be the Sunderland's new head coach. Apparently, according to Sky Sports, at the time of recording, it's late on Friday night, and apparently within 24 hours, we pretty much could hope to appoint Lee Johnson as head coach. Anyway, as you may have suggested, head coach, and as the title of this video suggests, we have a sporting director. We have a new sporting director. Now, I usually don't do videos about stuff like this, but I think it's important to talk about it, really, especially for those for people who do watch my videos who probably aren't as tech savvy. Anyway, I'm going to read out the statement now. So, Sunderland AFC is delighted to announce the appointment of... Now, I'm going to get this name wrong, I know I am. Kristjaan Speakman as the club's new sporting director. The 41-year-old arrives at the Academy of Light to take on the newly created role as part of a restructuring of the club's football operations. After departing Birmingham City following an outstanding 14-year tenure, Speakman will lead SCFC's overall football programme, including player identification, development and acquisitions across the first team and academy. Working alongside Chief Executive Officer Jim Rodwell, well, in other words, Stuart Donald's puppet, I'll never be convinced on Jim Rodwell. He will also take primary responsibility for reviewing and implementing new strategies to develop the club's footballing infrastructure, with emphasis on data analytics and innovation, and providing a clear pathway from the younger age groups to the first team. After a spell coaching with Derby County's academy, Speakman moved to Birmingham City in 2006. Spent 8 years as the Blues Academy manager following his appointment in 2011 before progressing into the role of Academy Director in 2018, where his remit extended across first team operations. The strategies and philosophies implemented during his time at St Andrews... I've gone down too far there. During his time at St Andrews led to the recruitment and development of a plethora of notable academy graduates, including England internationals Jack Butland, Jamari Gray, Nathan Redmond and Jude Bellingham. During the 1920 season alone, 10 players developed by Birmingham's academy system made their first team debuts. Speaking about his appointment, Speakman said, "I have been tasked with delivering a best-in-class player development model for the academy, from the academy to the senior squad, and given a realistic timeframe and budget with which to do so. It is an absolute honour to be invited to do this at one of England's biggest clubs." I mean, I know he's saying that because he's been appointed here, but he's right. The blueprint for the future and the ambition to create a sustainable structure with a clear identity is one I will work diligently and passionately to bring to fruition for Sunderland fans. I am grateful for the autonomy, I think that's how you said it right, granted to me by the ownership to pursue this plan and create something we can all be proud of. We understand the frustration of the present circumstances, and whilst we seek patience and continued support for the longer-term objectives, we are absolutely determined to fix key issues in the short term to establish a winning team. The task of appointing a head coach who is also both aligned to the overall plan and capable of impacting the team's performance and in style in the immediate weeks and months is a priority above all else. I fully understand the potential of this football club, and I'm looking forward to working collectively with staff, players and fans to restore the club to its rightful place in the Premier League. There is no doubt about the size of this task ahead of us and the need to be pragmatic in our approach, but we all share the same dream, and the work starts now to make this a reality. So, I made a bit of a mess there, spending about 3 minutes reading that statement, but nevertheless, I did feel it was an important thing to talk about, and I was talking to one of my close friends on the phone before coming on to do a video like this, and one of the things he said was change in direction, and I think obviously that couldn't have summed it up any better. I think that, for context, sporting director and say director of football, to me, I don't know whether I'm wrong here, but to me, it seems like two very similar roles. But basically, he's basically someone. Speakman is going to basically be working above, assuming it's Lee Johnson, above him to sort of do the transfers and the implementation of academy policies and getting youth team players through to the first team. Now, theoretically, this will work very well for Sunderland fans, because obviously Sunderland fans tend, and I don't mean this in a bad way by any means, but Sunderland fans tend to be, oh, right, we want to get our youngsters in the first team. And to be fair, a lot of clubs are going to be like that. They want to see their youth products and academy products do well because they're one of your own. You want to see them basically have a good shot at being in the first team. Now, obviously, the issue becomes if they're good enough. Now, this is where he's going to be judged because Sunderland's academy needs investment. It needs to get back to what it was because Jordan Pickford and Jordan Henderson, yes, you can say two examples of a majority, blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, it's proof you can do it if you do it right. Both Pickford and Henderson have gone on to be England internationals. Pickford's gone off the boil a bit recently, to be fair, but Henderson's won the Champions League, the Club World Cup, the Premier League. He's won trophies now, and he's a key regular member in Liverpool's team. In my opinion, as a footballer, still quite undervalued, but not quite as much now as he used to be. But in saying that, that's where the academy needs to come into question here, because you've got to remember that in order for Sunderland to become sustainable, we've got to, and I know some Sunderland fans probably won't like this, but unfortunately it's the sad reality, we have got to adapt a model of really develop young players, get them into the first team, get them noticed, and sell them off at a huge profit and continue that process over and over again. Now, obviously, it's easier said than done, but for me, this is a change in direction. Now, I used to be against the idea of a director of football or sporting director because you need a lot of people to be on the same page in order to get it to work. But the more I've listened to podcasts, the more I've looked upon the idea of a sporting director, I'm starting to shift my opinion towards we probably do need this, because this does look at a long-term strategy. And in the short term, our objective still does not change. We have to get promoted. But at the same time, I think for me, if someone can get into the Championship, we can't expect to immediately challenge for promotion at the Premier League. For me, I'm not going to say delusional, that's a bit harsh, but I do think it's a bit unrealistic given a couple of things. One, it's going to require a lot of investment to get anywhere near to that point, or it's going to require very, very good management in terms of getting academy players through to the first team, and in terms of recruitment, getting quite lucky in finding really good players at cheap buys. So we might end up looking abroad in a lot of senses. But two, the Championship is a very, very difficult division, and it's one where I've said before in the past, I'm willing to tolerate getting into the Championship and staying there for a couple of years, as long as we're never in any danger of getting relegated. And in the long term, that is nowhere near where I want Sunderland to be. Long term, the aim should be to get back to and comfortably stabilise in the Premier League. But at the same time, this is a way to kind of do it. If you look at Brentford as one model now, yes, Brentford haven't got promoted, but they've given themselves the platform to do it. Or if you look at a better example, Norwich. For those of you who know, obviously I'm a fan of Tottenham Norwich City, in particular Chris Reeve, and I'm sure he'll probably say this, like Stuart Webber, the sporting director at Norwich City, I think that's the term for it. Anyway, they've managed to make themselves sustainable, and bearing in mind, Sunderland do not have parachute payments anymore, so we've got to look to make ourselves sustainable for the long term. So, for me, this is a clear strategy and a clear plan. Now, obviously with the head coach thing, I used to prefer the title of manager. But now when you look at it, if say Lee Johnson is appointed and he doesn't do as well, and in 1.5 to 2 years, because it might even be less than that knowing Sunderland, say then that he's relieved of his duties. If Sunderland are going to have an identity, a clear way of playing, then essentially your job in finding the right person, in some senses, should become easier, because you understand what type of coach you want, what are their ideologies and philosophies on the game, and how they want players to and how they want to play football, basically. So, in this sense, it's not a bad idea. Now, obviously, we've been down here before, Roberto Di Fanti and Lee Congerton, but just because they didn't work doesn't automatically mean this isn't going to work. For me, I never got the impression with them that there was ever long-term strategies at the forefront of their minds. Maybe it probably was, but I never got that impression. So, with Speakman, I'm hoping, and I've seen mixed comments from Birmingham fans from what I saw on the Birmingham's Twitter announcing his departure, but at the same time, I'd like to see, it's good to see we are at least trying to consider something long-term, and just hopefully it works. I've rambled on long enough. This video's gone about probably twice as long as what I originally thought it was going to be. We'll wait and see in the coming days, or maybe even later tonight if we're lucky, about Lee Johnson getting appointed, and I'll talk more about that. I'll talk more about the new manager, or head coach now, when they're appointed, whoever it is. Take care, guys, and see you later.